She's only 24 years old. Her boots are almost always covered in Nebraska mud. She's carrying more debt than many people twice her age would ever dare to take on. Yet if you only know her from social media, Laura Wilson, better known as Laura Farms, seems to be living the dream. Millions of people watch her videos as she builds a farming business from the ground up, sharing beautiful sunsets, giant tractors, and endless fields stretching to the horizon. But behind those picture-perfect moments, another story has been growing. Rumors. Endless speculation. And one question keeps coming up. How much of what people are saying is actually true? The internet has a habit of turning small details into massive stories. Once people sense drama, they don't wait for proof. They start connecting dots that may not even exist. Over the last couple of years, Laura Farms became one of the biggest targets for online speculation. People whispered about financial trouble. Others talked about an employee who suddenly walked away during one of the busiest times of the year. Then came the rumor that spread faster than anything else in early 2025. Was her marriage falling apart? It sounded believable to many people. But was there any real evidence, or was the internet simply creating another story? The rumors didn't appear out of nowhere. Viewers began pointing at tiny details. In one video, Laura wasn't wearing her wedding ring. In another, her husband Grant wasn't around. Some people even claimed her voice sounded different, as if that somehow proved something was wrong. Before long, strangers were acting like detectives, analyzing a few seconds of footage and building an entire narrative around it. But here's the strange part. How much can you really learn about someone's life from a handful of short videos? Things became even messier when fake social media accounts started pretending to be Laura. These accounts messaged fans, claimed she had gone through a breakup, and even asked for sympathy and support. To many people, they looked convincing. The rumors spread even further. But think about that for a moment. If the story were actually true, why would anyone need fake accounts to convince people it happened? Then another wave of speculation took over. This time, it was all about money. People claimed she was buried in debt. They argued that the farm couldn't survive on its own and that YouTube was the only thing keeping the operation alive. Unlike some of the other rumors, this one contained a small piece of reality. Farming is incredibly expensive. Land costs money. Machinery costs money. Fuel, repairs, fertilizer, seed, maintenance, every season demands another round of huge investments. The pressure is very real. But does having debt automatically mean everything is falling apart? The answer isn't as simple as many people think. To understand why, you have to go back to where everything began. It was April 2020. The world had slowed to a stop as people stayed at home during the pandemic. Millions spent their days scrolling through social media, looking for something interesting to watch. At the same time, a 19-year-old Laura picked up her phone and started recording her daily work on the farm. There was no expensive camera crew. No complicated production. Just one young farmer, a smartphone, and an honest look at life in the fields. It seemed like a small idea. But nobody expected what happened next. Her videos exploded in popularity. Views climbed into the millions. People who had never stepped onto a farm suddenly became fascinated by planting, harvesting, repairing machinery, and dealing with unpredictable weather. What began with a simple phone slowly grew into one of the biggest farming channels on the internet. But while viewers saw the exciting moments, there was another side they rarely noticed. Farming has never been a guaranteed success. Every season is a gamble. One bad harvest can erase months of hard work. So the real question became this. How much uncertainty can one person handle before it becomes overwhelming? Laura wasn't handed a fully built operation. She worked to create her own business by renting land, financing equipment, and taking on large loans that many people would avoid. Even though YouTube, sponsorships, and other opportunities brought in extra income, much of that money went straight back into the farm. New equipment. Operating costs. Improvements. Repairs. It became an endless cycle of earning, investing, and hoping the next season would be good enough to keep everything moving. But what happens when nature has other plans? Around the same time her online career began, Laura married Grant. They weren't just husband and wife. They became business partners, problem solvers, and teammates facing every challenge together. Every decision affected both their personal lives and the future of the farm. That's a huge amount of pressure for any couple. Sometimes shared challenges make relationships stronger. Other times, they create cracks. So when people started wondering whether something had changed between them, it wasn't difficult to see why the rumors gained attention. But attention doesn't always mean accuracy. Could people have been reading far too much into ordinary moments? To really understand Laura's story, you also have to understand where she came from. Farming wasn't a random career choice. She grew up surrounded by it. Her family had been farming for generations, building a legacy that stretched back more than 100 years. Even so, she wasn't forced to continue that tradition. She studied business. She had other paths available. She could have chosen something much safer and far more predictable. Instead, she deliberately stepped into one of the riskiest industries imaginable. Why would someone willingly choose that kind of uncertainty? The answer seems to be that she approached farming almost like building a new company. She didn't simply inherit success. She planned carefully, expanded step by step, and treated every investment as part of a long-term vision. For a while, that strategy worked remarkably well. The channel kept growing. The farm kept expanding. Then everything seemed to go wrong at once. One of the first major setbacks came when a worker unexpectedly left during one of the busiest parts of the farming season. There was no convenient time for that to happen, but it happened anyway. Suddenly, jobs that had already filled every hour of the day became even harder to manage. The workload increased almost overnight. Every task demanded more time, more energy, and more patience. Anyone can keep moving when things are going well. But what do you do when you're already exhausted and the work suddenly doubles? Then came another challenge that many farmers know all too well. After suffering real crop damage, Laura filed an insurance claim expecting the support that insurance is supposed to provide. Instead, she found herself caught in a frustrating battle over compensation. The process dragged on. Questions turned into arguments. Delays became more delays. Rather than hiding the experience, she talked openly about it. Her story made many viewers wonder how many other farmers faced the same struggle every single year without anyone noticing. But just when it looked like things couldn't become more difficult, another problem arrived. A bridge on her property collapsed, cutting off access to part of the farm during harvest season. It sounds like something from a disaster movie, but it became another very real obstacle. Harvesting is already a race against time. Losing access to land means delays, lost income, extra costs, and constant frustration. Every day matters. Every hour counts. So how do you keep a business running when the infrastructure you rely on suddenly disappears? As if that wasn't enough, winter weather made everything even harder. Harvesting in freezing conditions slowed the entire operation. Crop quality suffered. Lower quality often means lower prices, and lower prices squeeze already thin profit margins. By this point, it wasn't just one difficult situation. It was several major setbacks arriving one after another. Viewers noticed that Laura looked tired, and they were right. Anyone facing that much pressure probably would. But does looking exhausted automatically mean your entire life is falling apart? That question brings us back to the rumor that attracted the most attention. People became convinced that something was wrong with Laura and Grant's marriage. Online discussions grew louder. The theories became more dramatic. Yet despite all the speculation, there was one thing nobody could produce. Actual evidence. There were no official statements. No confirmation. Just assumptions built from carefully selected moments. Eventually, Laura addressed the rumors directly. Her answer was straightforward. The stories weren't true. She and Grant were still together, still working, and still facing life's challenges as a team. So why had so many people believed otherwise? The answer says as much about the internet as it does about Laura herself. When creators share parts of their lives online, audiences begin to feel as though they know them personally. Viewers notice every small change, every missing detail, every different expression. When information is missing, people naturally fill in the blanks with their own theories. Sometimes those guesses are harmless. Other times they spread so widely that they begin to look like facts, even when they aren't. What was true, however, was the pressure. The financial risks were real. The employee really did leave. The insurance problems really happened. The bridge really collapsed. The difficult harvests and stressful seasons weren't invented for clicks. Laura never pretended farming was easy. She showed the setbacks alongside the successes. Instead of turning hardship into drama, she treated it as part of everyday life. And maybe that's exactly what makes her story stand out. Despite everything she was dealing with, Laura still found time to help others. When another farming family needed support, she stepped forward, helping organize assistance and bringing people together even while managing her own problems. That choice revealed something important. Her channel wasn't only about views or subscribers. It reflected the farming community she cared about. At just 24 years old, she's carrying enormous responsibility. Heavy debt. Difficult decisions. Long hours. Constant uncertainty. Every season brings another gamble, and every investment carries risk. Yet she keeps showing up. She keeps farming. She keeps filming. She keeps sharing both the victories and the setbacks because this isn't simply content for the internet. It's her business, her future, and part of her family's legacy. So, were the rumors true? A few contained tiny pieces of reality. Most of them didn't. The real story isn't one of perfect success, but it isn't a story of complete failure either. It's the story of a young farmer trying to build something meaningful in one of the toughest industries there is, while millions of people watch every move she makes. Maybe that's why her journey continues to capture so much attention. The truth isn't nearly as simple as the headlines suggest. And perhaps that's exactly what makes it impossible to look away.